Welcome to the NetSetter podcast. I'm your host, Blake Minho Kim. Join me as we focus on demystifying the innovations driving the new internet. All right. Welcome, Maggie. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Blake. I'm excited to be here and talk with you today.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I feel like I've heard a lot about SheFi over the past couple of years, and it's great to finally have you on. So, kick things off, as we always do, origin stories. So, would love to have you tell myself and our audience a bit about yourself, SheFi, and how you got to this point today in 2024.
Yes, I'm going to take you all the way back to the beginning of how I fell down this crypto rabbit hole, because there's a lot of themes in all of my origin stories that I've had in this space. So it was 2016. I was working at IBM Watson in Watson for financial services, doing product strategy. And I had been at IBM for 4 years and was, about that time that maybe I should do something new. And I was in this corporate strategy meeting in 2016 around what are all the technologies IBM could bring to the financial services sector. And there was this man on the phone. He wasn't even in the room. We were in a boardroom, pre-COVID. Everyone was in the office, basically. And he kept saying, blockchain, 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 blockchain. Like, gotta do something with blockchain. To the point where the people in the room were like, can you mute that guy? Like, he's so annoying. And I was like, wait, somebody's excited about something at IBM? Like, I need to go figure out what that is. It was just rare at that point for someone to be so psyched. So I literally went to a physical Barnes & Noble bookstore. If people remember what that is. I searched blockchain, found a book called The Blockchain Revolution, and I read it in like 2 days. And it was all the values and all the use cases. So I didn't even know there was like a token associated with this technology, but I was really fascinated by it, right? Cross-border remittances, like local currency economies, keeping value within communities, supply chain, some of those first big use cases. And I was like, I don't know exactly what this is, but I feel like there's like some tech for good in there. And I think it's the future. So like, I got to figure out how to be a part of it. And so that was just me listening to my intuition a bit. And so I spent all my free time at IBM, hiding in cubicles, looking up blockchain on the internet, trying to find companies in New York, DMing recruiters, like doing everything I could just to figure out who is building this stuff in New York. And in early 2017, I found a friend of a friend who worked at a company called Consensus and asked for that intro. And he met me for coffee at a place called Swallow out in Bushwick. And it was next to the Consensus office, which was a flat in Bushwick. Now, I was coming from corporate America. I was dressed in my nice outfit. I was used to, New York, IBM, Astor Place. And we get coffee and he takes me inside this flat and the energy is just infectious. Everyone's asking who I am, excited to meet me, wearing whatever they want, a lot of young people. And I was like, okay, once again, I'm still not 100% sure what this thing is, but I have to work here. I have to be around these people. And
something's going on. Something's going on. Yeah.
And later that year, I joined Consensus in a strategic initiatives role. And so that's kind of like my origin story into this space. And what I like to tell people is that it was really about following my intuition. Like, it's not always about having all the information or having 100% what is the role, what is the next step. But if you like are really piqued, your interest is really piqued by something, like follow up on it and see it through, because doing that has really changed my life in so many ways since joining this space. And I just can't recommend that enough. And whether that's crypto or AI or a hobby you have, like dive in there. If something in the back of your mind is like, what is this? Like, figure it out. So I like to share that as a part of my story.
I love that. And then how'd you get to SheFi, right? So, I mean, with Consensus, obviously they're one of the OGs in the Ethereum space, for those who may not be aware. Definitely go look them up, MetaMask and all that. But we'd love to hear about your time there. And then what was the transition point from working there to actually saying, hey, I want to go start my own thing and build this cool thing that you've been working on for a while called SheFi?
Yes. And I like to tell people I've also had 9 lives in crypto. So while at Consensus, I was part of a team called Solarius, which was building a collaborative science fiction storytelling universe on the blockchain. I spent 3 months in LA working with Ian McKegg, the guy who's the concept artist behind Darth Maul. We were putting stories on the blockchain. Unfortunately, that didn't make it through the 2018 crash, the first Ethereum crash that I lived through. And then I also co-founded a cloud compute venture with Advanced Micro Devices. And we were first doing Ethereum mining and a lot of other workloads a bit too early as well. So DePIN, is going to be a new narrative taking off here, but we are a bit too early and we actually closed last year. And that was a great learning experience as well. And in the mix there...
Just a quick comment. I mean, that's the hard part, right? Is that was 2017, 2018 was my entry point as well in terms of just, having some friends tell me about Ethereum. I was at a venture studio called Human Ventures. I had a blockchain lab and I was like, this is interesting. But timing is everything, right? I feel like, as we saw with like Seamless and Grubhub, right? Like in the first internet bubble, they had food delivery with the internet, but they just didn't have enough high-speed internet and mobile phones, and then eventually it came around. So I don't know. All this to say is good on you for doing it so early, and now it's taking off. So is the right idea. Just timing is so tough sometimes. That's all. Yeah,
totally. Timing's tough, but I also like that. We could be a part of the early stages of figuring out the kinks of some of this stuff and bringing in big names and onboarding early creators that I hope are still engaged in the space today. So we're all a part of this same journey. And I think that we can talk about this a bit later, but there's like rush to consumer and also knowing we're building technology that's going to totally reinvent how humans coordinate. And that's going to take a very long time because as we know, humans are very stuck in their ways and we've had all this conditioning to coordinate in certain ways. So there's this like push and pull, there's this tension in the space of like, let's be ready now and needing to remember that we might not see the total fruits of our labor in our lifetime. So I think we have to always be balancing that in our head that this technology is in its infancy. It has had a few consumer watershed moments, but we're probably in it for a much longer haul than some people would like. So you have to be appreciative of the parts that you helped shepherd in, even if it doesn't, end up the way you had expected.
Everything takes longer than you think it will, right? It just is what it is. It's the same thing at work. I always talk to my co-founder about is, we want to set these like very aggressive timelines and we want to hit these goals and we're going to work towards it. But in the back of my mind, I feel like it's always, but we also have to recognize most likely it's going to take an extra couple of weeks, extra month. But it's still good to like aim for it. But yeah, everything takes longer. So
totally. I'd love to talk about goal setting later because I set very big goals for myself and I actually write them down every morning, which I found out like less than 1% of Americans write down their goals. I just read that somewhere. And would love to leave the audience with a little, you should write down your goals because you'll be in the 1% of people really thinking about how to achieve these things. So aggressive goals are good. But a bit about SheFi. So lived through my first crypto crash in 2018. And, that was difficult in many ways, super challenging. I know how people are feeling today if you were laid off or you're in this period of limbo. Like that doesn't go away with these bear markets. And, I've been there.
And it was a long crypto winter, that period. 100%.
It was long. People were definitely like in 2017, like you're crazy, but this seems really cool. And then they were like, you're crazy and you're just crazy. Right. Yeah. But I really enjoyed that period of quiet because it allows you to think. It's not so noisy. You're not trying to read 100 white papers and figure out how to get money from an account to a Coinbase to some other thing to buy some random token. Like the degenning has just always existed. But during that time, so kind of 2019, that next winter, I was going to conferences like ETH Denver and others and starting to hear about this decentralized finance set of use cases taking off and meeting people like Stani back when it was ETHLand and not Aave and some of the early DeFi people. And then I looked around and I recognized, even within Consensus, they set up a DeFi unit and happened to be all dudes. So I was like, oh, wait. Everyone on stage is talking about open permissionless finance that is more accessible. But if we're honest with ourselves, the people that are saying it's more accessible and inclusive already benefited from traditional finance. And I was just like, I don't want us to exacerbate the gender, financial, and tech gap even more with this new set of use cases if we don't find a way to bring women in. And so once again, there's this tension in the crypto space of like the technology is permissionless, but that doesn't mean you have to do the work to go find the people who aren't somewhat exposed to it and able to be part of it. And once again, great story, another like intuition moment is I was actually having coffee in the Consensus office in 2019 with a friend, Corbin Page, not talking about DeFi at all, but we're just catching up. And he mentioned a bunch of the guys in Consensus did the NCAA bracket where you put money into a pool and then you pick a basketball team that's going to win over this month of March. They're playing a tournament. And then if you pick the right team, you get the pot. And they had put their money in Compound during that time, and it was like earning 11% interest because if it had gotten hacked, only one person was supposed to get the pot. So like they were playing with money and playing with new DeFi protocols in like a very risk-free way in terms of like their emotional attachment to the money wasn't there anymore because they'd already said like, I'm basically agreeing to give this up. I don't know if I can pick the right basketball team. And something about that conversation really stuck with me where I later that day, I was like, if I could just help women put their money into these DeFi protocols and feel a little bit less attachment to it, I think I could be like on the right track to getting more women participating, contributing, and building in this space. And I was just meditating on that while on a run later that fall and figuring out like, how can I gamify this or how can I make this more accessible and meditating on all these words. And I was like, DeFi, SheFi, that's a good name. And I like was happened to be home visiting my parents and I came back and I told them and I was like, okay, I'm going to start this DeFi education cohort program. I'm going to help women put their money into these protocols and see what happens and learn by doing. And it's going to be called SheFi. And they're like, cool. We don't know what most of that is, but we think the name SheFi is great. So you should definitely do something with that. And once again,
it's a cool name. I don't know what it does, but I like it.
Exactly. And like, once again, it was an intuitive moment where it was like, this name came to me. It felt extremely divinely inspired. And therefore, it must be something I should go do. Just like I heard about blockchain, it seemed interesting. I got super curious about it. So this is something I want to do. And to put it in perspective, I have a tech background, but I don't have a finance background. And I was basically betting on myself to learn these concepts from traditional finance and now decentralized finance and communicate it into a way that a group of newcomers could understand, or people who were maybe in marketing for Truffle, a developer tool suite, so just didn't have time to learn about DeFi, and going to get women to like put their money into things and like take on-chain action. And that was really like just the beginning of an amazing journey that it's hard to overstate how impactful SheFi has been and what a journey it's been, a beautiful journey it's been.
Oh man. Yeah. And I'm sure there's so much to dive into, and I'm sure there's a billion thoughts swirling through the brain, right? Because I'm sure even just the past 2 years, so much has happened, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways we could kind of tackle this giant, story, I guess. But I guess from my perspective, here in 2024, you're on your 10th cohort, I believe, which is exciting. So we'd love to kind of hear, I guess, with SheFi, how do you feel like it's really evolved since the inception when you first started to where it is today? What are the biggest differences, and so many more things we can dive deeper from there?
That's a great question. There's a lot of differences. So I had the idea in 2019, and at the time there was Uniswap, MakerDAO, Compound, Aave, and there might have been Nexus Mutual. But in my head, there was like, great, I'm going to create content around 5 protocols. I'm going to get together with a proof of concept. So it was a group of women in Consensus that said, like, yeah, this is a great idea. Like, we want to see if you're good at teaching. and we want to play with these protocols. And I was like, easy money. And I actually launched it publicly in April 2020 during lockdown because I knew that people might be looking for financial alternatives. And then this thing called DeFi Summer 2020 happened. And not only was there Uniswap, but there was SushiSwap, and there was all these new protocols, and there was yield farming, right? Basically, incentives program where you put in some type of token and they pay you in a reward token, right? Like classic rewards program in a very crypto native way. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have my work cut out for me. But we didn't really honestly focus on the DGEM plays. But, as I started thinking about, okay, well, how does this actually begin to go from DeFi to new people? I had to create a course on blockchain and wallets. And I did my first public cohort in around the late summer of 2020. It was called the Date Night with SheFi because no one was going out. And I just was my friends and friends of friends in New York and their friends of friends. Like, if you want to come learn about this technology and DeFi, like, come join. And people were like, I love it. Like, when's the next one? And that was great. And really how it's evolved then is like those early people saw NFTs happening in 2021. So they were like, okay, well, tell me about NFTs. And then, I started doing more cohorts, and then it's like DAOs became a thing and governance is a thing. And in 2023, consumer crypto is a thing, and AI and how that intersects with the technology. So it grew from 5 classes to 13 weeks of content and programming. And that's really been like the biggest evolution, is just keeping up with the space, but in a way that really helps people navigate it in like a sane and curated way. And so just, realizing that the interest and the appetite for staying up to date with topics was there. So even though it's called SheFi, we really cover the 3 core areas. So infrastructure, blockchain wallets and scaling, DeFi, which includes like stable coins, staking, swapping, and lending. And then this new consumer focus, which is like NFTs, governance and DAOs, consumer crypto, and artificial intelligence. So somehow I keep creating new content. I think like one day, Uniswap's not going to upgrade their protocol, or I'm not going to find a new thing to create content on, but I keep finding more ways to create content. However, I'm a nerd and learning is really important to me. So it doesn't actually feel like a ton of work to be creating these types of courses.
I absolutely love that. And that makes so much sense. I think the evolution, because even I think for people who went through that journey, right? 2020, when I tell people about when we started Myosin, right? I was like, yeah, like 2017 was the thing, but like it wasn't until 2020 when like DeFi summer hit that I got back in. Cause I'll be honest, during crypto winter, I had a little bit of ETH that I bought. It just sat there in my wallet for years. I just kind of forgot about it. And then DeFi summer, NFTs, I was like, what's happening? This Cambrian explosion. So it's amazing to hear that. I think you've been kind of keeping up with it, right? And continue to educate people. So would you say today then it's very much like, so there's the coursework, right? Or the 13 weeks of content programming. What else is there for the SheFi? I'd love to hear about the community and the events and all the other stuff you guys do as well around that ecosystem. I'd love to hear a bit more there.
Yeah. And to like help crystallize where we've decided to expand, the 3 pillars of my thinking when I was crafting SheFi was, you need dedicated time and space to learn, right? You have 50 tabs open and then it's Friday and you're like, I guess I'm not going to learn about Uniswap today. So I was like, I bet people want this dedicated time. I'm going to show up. You're going to show up. So kind of that community vibe. I wanted you to get on-chain experience. So I really wanted you to take advantage of swapping, staking, lending, and this like content pillar, right? Which is like, you're going to learn, you're going to show up with other people, you're going to have dedicated time to do it. So it's not going to be one of those tabs. If you join the course, you'll definitely learn. And then another really important component is actually doing. And then the community comes in again to help you if you are stuck on one of the activities. And so that kind of is like the core thesis behind SheFi. It's like content, community, and activity, experimentation. And so that's really like led into a lot of other things as well. The first and I guess most prominent thing SheFi does is now we have a series of events called SheFi Summit. And those have been so much fun. And they combine, again, content and on-chain activations. And how SheFi Summit got started last year was, one, I wanted to keep bringing my community together. I think like it's great to have Discord and Telegram and all these virtual channels, and you're hoping people are engaging and you're getting to the right inboxes and eyeballs. And I was like, you can't really replace the magic of bringing people together in person and hearing stories and, building community through those interactions. So I was like, well, let's bring the community together through events. And then I was looking around, and there's lots of women in Web3 brunches and happy hours and parties, and those are all amazing, and I'm very supportive of that. But there was no one that said like, let's rival ETH Denver. Like, there's still so many all-male panels at all these conferences. like, what if we created a conference that was as, robust as an ETHCC or an ETH Denver, but had all women on stage presenting, because it's 2023 and there's plenty of incredible women builders in this space. And it's definitely a shame that we don't see them more, or they're not highlighted. So we were like, well, let's just create a space for that. And men are totally welcome to come, but the idea is women that are pioneering the space, and, a conference around that. And so those have been a lot of fun. And then with those, there's activations. And to give you some numbers, in Paris, we had over 300 people come and stay all day, which was amazing. And like over 600 POAPs were minted for all the talks. And it was like, that was like V1 of the gamification. And in Istanbul, we had like 250 people come. And so those are really exciting, and really what we're focusing on this year outside of the cohort. So we'll be in Denver on the 28th. So I hope y'all can join us. We'll be at ETHCC Brussels. We'll be at Token 2049 Singapore, and Bangkok for DevCon. So really excited about that, and have just had an incredible positive response from everyone that comes, that this feels like a breath of fresh air. Everyone's paying attention. I'm actually using the technology. People are giving me feedback as a sponsor on where they're getting stuck with my application. And I really want to make sure, if we're talking about onboarding the masses, that we're first, using the technology that will get to the masses.
I love that. And that's so important, right? And also, by the way, on a personal note, I'm like, that's good. Those are all the conferences we're going to outside of ECC. So we'll be at Token, DevCon, and all the other, and ETH Denver. That's so good. That's so good. I'm just like processing. Sorry. I guess thinking about onboarding the masses, right? Would love to kind of get your perspective on, obviously you're a critical part of that journey to, I guess, make things easier for people, and make, not dumb down, but simplify and make very, very clear to people the benefits of this technology, and how it can really impact our lives. But I guess the question here is, over the past couple of years, and maybe, you go as far back as you want, right? Since you've been in this space for a long time, how do you feel like that has evolved? I guess the onboarding process. Do you feel like we are making a difference? And where do you think there's still room for improvement, and where we still need help to make these things simpler for people to understand and onboard?
It's going to be very fascinating for me to think about how the curriculum changes with wallets that have account abstraction, right? That make it so you don't have to have this seed phrase, or consumer crypto being able to sign in with a Gmail account, right? And I think about that all the time, because my course is very focused on, like, you need this seed phrase, and you need to save it somewhere, and you need to write it down, and write it down 5 times, and all that stuff. And so I think about that a lot. And I think in the last year, even though it was a bear market, we've made incredible strides towards this idea that everyone can have a crypto interaction, regardless of if they go through this downloading a wallet process. And I'm really excited about that. And I think that, hot take, but I think that artificial intelligence and bringing some of these technologies onto blockchains will kind of be the next big influx of consumers to the space. I think that all this technology around generating art, or, text to image, text to whatever, and if we can really figure out a way to embed that into our ecosystem, we'll be bringing in like the same amount of people that we brought in with the NFT space, which is why I'm adapting my curriculum to make sure that's included as well. And we're teaching people how to use these technologies. And I think when it comes to onboarding the masses, we are getting there. And I think something us in the West have to really think about is beyond us, right? So the SheFi community is actually in 50 plus countries, and we have really large community groups in Turkey, in Lagos, Nigeria. We're getting more in Taiwan, in Asia. And, we have people calling in from Cameroon, and, LATAM, and all these places where there's actually really good product market fit for crypto, like whether it's their banking system is corrupt, whether they're already very mobile first ecosystems, whether they're an incredible educated pool of people looking for these remote first jobs, whether they have strong colleges, blockchain programs, and so it makes a lot of sense for them to continue to be interested. There is product market fit there. And I think in the West, we're so focused on like, oh my gosh, got to build the next Twitter, got to build the next, got to build the next Instagram, got to build the next addictive application, because that's how consumer apps win. You literally have to be addicted to it. And maybe like, it's like, I'm obviously being a little spicy here and overgeneralizing, but we do have to think about what does the masses mean in terms of unexplored places for crypto. And what I've been really excited to see is in the SheFi Africa chat, there's tons of events happening this year. We're actually going to be going to ETH Safari as well, and collaborating with a few of the female women DAOs there. And I think that's something, I think DevCon actually does a pretty good job of being in places where these people that we're not thinking about all the time in the West are. But I think that's like an important group to remember, because that's going to be where some of the biggest populations are, and where they could really use the technology and have actually the talent pool to build really exciting things.
I completely agree with that. And I think it's a frustration I also share, because I think, as someone who lived in New York for quite a while, and I've been pretty East Coast ride or die for a while, based my whole life. I think it is funny, like as Americans, we so oftentimes people would be like, what's the use case? Like, and we have to recognize the dollar is the global reserve currency. So of course we're as Americans like not worried about it, because we go anywhere in the world. It's what most free trade is transacting. But you're completely right. And actually, and the data backs it up too, right? Because if you look at number of crypto transactions and what countries is this most actively being used in, it is countries in South America, in LATAM, in Africa, in Asia. Like there's a lot of places where you can't trust your local government to not hyperinflate your money, right? And everything you're talking about, it makes so much sense. So it's really exciting to hear that you guys are pushing deeper into places where the use case is pretty obvious, and it just needs to happen, right? Beautiful. So following up on that, right? We always love to hear some good war stories, right? So as you've gone through SheFi and you've gone through all these evolutions, and obviously we had this kind of bear market, I guess, last year, right? What would you say are some of the bigger challenges you faced, biggest wins, right? It could be both sides, right? Lessons learned. Would love to dive a bit deeper into that.
Yes, I think there's so many lessons learned just from putting yourself out there as a founder, being like, I think this is something worthy of spending time into, and just having the market reject you, and I think that you can't, but I joke with my fiance, like we're becoming spiritually unfuckwithable. I hope that's not a term you have to bleep out, but I've had a huge growth in that. And that's only come from founding SheFi and putting it out there on the internet, and people being like, why do we need to have a space for women in 2019, to, like sponsors being like, we'd love to help you, but it's a bear market. So there's been like a lot of challenges, and definitely whenever there's a bear market, there's a financing challenge. And once again, to take you back in 2019, after seeing kind of what had happened in the VC and ICO space, I was like, I don't want anybody to own this except me. I don't want to take money from anyone. I don't want anyone to tell me what to do. I don't want to attach my success to anyone. So I'll leave it at that. And I fully funded SheFi with my own paychecks. So every time I got a paycheck, I would pay for the LLC or the legal team or to get some additional help. And I was like, it'll come back to me. And I didn't actually charge for SheFi, I think, until maybe 2021, like $50. I was kind of like, I'm doing something good? Like, am I allowed to charge for that? Like, I had all this kind of growing up to do, I guess. And then, in 2022, I started getting my first sponsors. I started being like, okay, like this is a lot of work. There's a lot of work, and I need to make it sustainable. I need to be able to pay people. I need to actually like treat it like a company, a business. And with that was kind of like an influx year too, where NFTs were super hot. So like I was getting 500 people to sign up for a cohort, right? So it's like, okay, this needs to like become a thing. And in general, in that story, there's been a lot of lessons in just asking for money. Like, hey, I'm going to create content. I'm going to onboard users. It's not like a traditional marketing thing where you're going to get 100,000 downloads, but I'm going to take 600 women and they're going to use your protocol. So I'm like, they're already in the funnel. You're not like going to maybe get funnel. You're getting actual user acquisition with SheFi, and then perfecting that story. And people saying like, now's not the right time. And Polygon, which came in to sponsor me last year in 2023, I actually met Mahalo in LizCon in 2021 and he saw me working on my content. He was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We'll fund you. And it took a year following up with him. Nothing against Mahalo. He's an amazing, amazing human to get that deal done. And once again, for founders listening to this, for people that have ideas, persistence, getting rejected, hearing it's not the right time, not being afraid to ask for the value that you're putting out in the world and figuring out a way for it to work out. So we work on securing a cohort sponsor so we can offer no questions asked scholarships, right? Knowing that it's a very global group and we have people from Guatemala and Nigeria and Istanbul and Asia where, $300 is a lot. So there's just been so much lessons about getting rejected, following up, like having faith in crypto, figuring out like, is there a grant I can get when the sponsors are like, sorry, there's not money here. How do I figure out pricing? How do I make it where the sponsors really feel like they're getting the correct amount of content and exposure and access? And so just that's a constant refining, 2022 to 2023 to 2024, constant, fine tuning and talking to people and listening to sponsors. So that's been a big, like a massive career founder growth for me, is just putting myself out there, putting my value out there, seeing when it's good, and seeing when it's, not good, but when it's not right for people. And what's really exciting about this year is it feels like, I want to knock on wood or something.
Knock on wood.
SheFi people understand the value. Crypto protocols understand the value. They're hiring SheFi members. They know they're well educated in this space from the program that I've put together. And they're like, okay, we want to help you. So the conversation's finally shifting a bit where I have a lot of inbounds versus me doing like a lot of outbounds. And we have like an incredible list of sponsors for the SheFi Summit as well. And it feels really good 5 years into this that it's happened. And that has been through 5 years of very hard work. I think a lot of people, a lot of the women in Web3 excitement came around 2021, and that's also amazing. But, I've been building this for 5 years, so none of this is overnight, I guess I also want to say. And if you're not constantly putting it out there, if you're not asking for the money, if you're not figuring out how to fine tune what that value is, and if you're not afraid to go ask again and again and again, then it might not work out. But it's just constant asking, constant rejection. And then one day, someone comes through and they're like, this is the correct moment in time for me to help you bring more women contributors and builders to the space. So I would say that's like been a lot of the lessons. I think another big lesson has just been around, I think in the beginning I wasn't sure, like, do I build a cohort or do I build a cohort in community? In the beginning I was kind of like, I don't know if I like want to manage like a full community. I don't know if I have like the capabilities to do that. And then in 2021, we had our first meetup in New York City in the spring when we could like first go outside, I think, like safe, like it wasn't like you're sneaking outside with your friends. It's like you could actually go outside. And I met with like 13 women who had all taken SheFi, had loved it, giving feedback. And one woman, I won't say her name, was like, hey, I just want you to know that I was in a very, non-traditional, nothing related to crypto, nothing related to finance, nothing related to tech industry. I took your course. I got a job in blockchain. I divorced my husband and I can pay for my daughter's childcare. She has special needs, like from your course. And I just want you to know you're doing an amazing thing. And I was like, immediately started crying and was like, okay, community is really important here. Like bringing people together and giving them time and space to communicate outside of just seeing me on the screen for class, and nurturing that and just continuing to like help people build relationships and connections and me understand what's going on was like, I must go all on this community part too. And that has been like incredibly rewarding in many ways. And I'm sure you all know, like that's community engagement's like a tough part of it. Like classes, cohorts, quests, demos, how-to guides, like I got that. But always figuring out like, how do we continue to encourage people to get together, to connect themselves, to contribute to the Discord when Discord is this love-hate platform, but it's been really rewarding to figure out how to build that. And we're trying to reinvent our community now, like our community strategy now in 2024. It's like this ever like it's an enigma almost, and why we have the events. And we're doing more peer-to-peer learning sessions where we have all these members now that have expertise around investing or interviewing for a job or real world assets. So really trying to like continue to figure that part out and make SheFi outside of the cohort a place to connect, stay, share stories, be vulnerable, find people that can support you. So that's like been another like lesson, and like something that I think is always, some more lessons are always coming out of choosing to
There's always more
nurture
lessons.
that community.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just like recapping a bit, right? I think the first bit that you had talked about was a really beautiful kind of story about like grit and resilience, and the fact that this takes, and as someone who's been in tech for a long time, I completely agree with you, right? Because we see it all the time, right? Like overnight, it feels like a company is like, where did this company come from? They raised like $1 billion. They got acquired for billions of dollars. And you're like, what? And then you dig deeper and you're like, well, they've been grinding for like 20 years, right? This didn't happen overnight. And yeah, frankly, I'll be honest, even before our conversation, I didn't realize that you had been working on this for so long, right? And so it happens all the time. And I hope that's inspiration for other people to kind of just keep at it. And then the second part I heard was very much around community, right? And, within Web3 especially, I feel like everyone's always talking about community, but it's one of the hardest things to maintain, keep up. And I can tell you, like, as someone, my role at Myzen is head of product and community. So it's something I'm always thinking about. And, for ourselves and for other groups I'm in as well, it definitely has been, there's been a noticeable downtick, I feel like, for most people in Discourse. Is kind of like, especially over the past year, I think when interest started to wane a little bit. But I am starting to see it turn around now. And then as you're talking about, how do we break away from, yes, that love-hate relationship with Discord, and how can we create better alternatives? I think IRL is another really important thing that we got to work on. So we're all getting there.
I know. In our internal newsletter today, I had heard from the community, since we haven't found that next best platform yet, because even Mighty Networks I haven't heard great things about, and these other, I've thought about a lot of them. And so I was like, okay, I can help them make Discord sane, right? You probably joined a lot of Discords and the NFT hype. I was like, light some sage, clear your Discord, leave groups you're no longer a part of. Here's privacy settings. We tried to do this in the beginning of the cohort as well, but some people joined us in 2021 before like Discord was a thing, so we were like, hey, this is how you can make it so no one can message you, and here's where you can find some resources. It's like, because since we haven't figured that out yet, I just like want people to feel like they can safely contribute and enjoy, because there is lots of good resources there, and our jobs channel is incredibly active in Discord. A big part of SheFi as well, kind of jumping off that, is career. So SheFi started as this DeFi thing, like we're going to maybe make some money, but really the goal was always that you understood the technical part so you could speak the language of whoever might want to hire you. So if we're talking about optimism, what a sequencer is and how they do block production and how it talks to Ethereum, so you can go confidently interview at Optimism. That was like a big goal of mine too, and really exciting this year. Right now, all the jobs are just done referrals by me. So like, I know a lot of people. I've been around for a while. I have a couple gray hairs from it. And I just refer like, hey, SheFire. And so we really want to work with actually like a freelance recruiter, because we have so many resumes and so many incredible women to figure out like how to make that process like really smooth. So I guess beyond community and content and activations, the next launch point in 2024 is going to be that career support. So really excited about that, because I had this moment at DevConnect where after the SheFi Summit, my community was at the Ethereum Foundation, at Optimism, coordinating this event, like inviting me to all these other things at companies, like all kinds of companies. And I was like, this is really why I'm doing it. And it was such a beautiful physical manifestation of, yes, SheFi is having an impact. And I just want to continue to like, make that more explosive. See SheFi members at all kinds of companies every time I go to an event.
And the beauty of it, we thought about something very similar as well, right? And that's the beauty of a community, is as that community that you start to refer them out to jobs, and you're basically doing the credentialing on behalf of the employer, right? Because as you build out your brand, as you build out your curriculum, there's more trust that you're providing quality education. So as you start to staff these people, it becomes this nice flywheel of they're going to inevitably refer more people, more sponsors, more opportunities that continue. And then you're basically the SheFi network proliferates into all of Web3 over time. So it's pretty incredible.
That's the goal. And like, I was talking about this with someone last night who is in more the Web2 space, and they're like, there's tons of layoffs in Web2 tech. It's like the vibes are very bad. So like you should be, finding all those people and being like, there's actually lots of hiring happening in Web3 again, especially for marketing. I'm sure you guys are seeing this a lot. Like, last year there was like, very
It was
low.
rough. Yeah.
It was rough.
Yeah.
It was rough. But this year it's like, that's how it's back. It's like people are like, oh, wait, I need narrative help so I can stand out amongst the 50 layer twos. It's like, yes, you do. Okay, because that's actually what's going to make you stand out is that impact, compelling narrative. So it's definitely
that has been the refreshing part about even for ourselves. Myosin started in like Feb 2022, I guess. So it was like peak kind of like bull market at that time. And so like we were going along and it was great, but it felt like a real struggle to explain to people like why marketing matters, because it's like, everyone's like, yeah, just launch a token and it just moves, like easy. But then that's when I think like late 2022, early 23 was when I think people finally started to get it, post FTX, post crash. And they're like, oh, like it doesn't just happen. So I think last year was very formative. And I think this year, as you're talking about, the market does seem to be turning around. I'm very bullish with the halving and all the other things happening. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and fingers crossed.
And like, this is a very random thought I'm sharing, but just kind of reminded me, you've been in the space a while, and like, how do you build through that bear market? And like, I think once again, tension. I don't know why tension's a theme here, but it's a theme. What do users care about? Users don't care about decentralization until FTX happens. Users don't care about custodying their own funds until, X happens. And I've been like really thinking about this whole like users don't care thing, and thinking about, okay, users actually don't have to care, but builders have to care. If you're not here for the values of decentralization, self-sovereignty, permissionlessness, accessibility, how are you going to build through that bear market? Like, what's going to keep you going? And I think that it doesn't matter if the end user doesn't really know it's decentralization. I agree. But you see who stayed and who pivoted and who was, like, oh gosh, like, I don't know why I'm here kind of thing, when like the NFTs dried up and everything dried up. And I think the people that stayed were like, these values still matter. And once again, they may take longer than I think. And like, for me, it's very clear that I think every woman on the planet deserves to be a financially self-sovereign person. And that every woman deserves to have one bank account that is hers and only hers. And that's my North Star. And so it doesn't matter what the price of ETH is. It doesn't matter if there's stress about a cohort sponsor. It's like, that's so clear to me that I will keep educating women, whether 600 women join my cohort or 50 women join my cohort. And I think that was like something you just said there kind of like reminded me of that, where it's like, these bull markets only happen because people double down on their values. And maybe the users don't have those values, but I think if we don't have those values, like, how are we building this future? Anyway, kind of like a tangent.
No, I love it. And that's the best thing. And I agree with that, right? I feel like that was I think anyone who's been here long enough would agree with what we're both saying, right? In terms of, I think that was the really refreshing part about last year, is once the noise kind of died down, you could really see like, okay, who's legit, who's like really here. And then that kind of has naturally self-filtered, and feels like, some of the people who kind of went away are starting to come back, but now we have eyes on them, and we can know, okay, these are quality people. These are serious people. These are, because that's going to keep happening, right? This rinse and repeat cycle. But I think as long as there are enough good people doing good work, right, pushing forward the right values, I think I'm optimistic that we'll be in a good place. Yeah.
I'm also optimistic. We have to be optimistic.
We have to be. We're techno optimists. Otherwise, how could you be working and grinding every day in Web3? I do want to be mindful of time. So I think maybe one or two more questions, and then we could jump to rapid fire. I would love to get your general take on what are you most excited about in the world of crypto Web3? There's a lot of interesting stuff happening, from different blockchains coming up, and they're all competing to ZK proofs, to consumer crypto, to AI and crypto, and there's so much happening. What are you most bullish on, most excited about? Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, I've touched on this earlier. I'm definitely bullish on AI and crypto. The company I formerly co-founded was called Web3 Cloud, and we were building GPUs for compute use cases. Mm-hmm. So I think there's going to be like a really interesting GPU, AI, crypto, network activation, incentivization going on, and building AI and crypto rails to keep it open, permissionless, and accessible. The models being built so we can actually know what have these things been trained on or what's going on. I'm really excited about that. And there's actually a lot of incredible women founders building this space. So if you come to SheFi Summit, you'll get to hear from them. And and then that fits into this DePIN narrative. So how do we leverage compute networks through blockchain incentives to do things like AI or other workloads? And so I love to see like the mix of that actually happening. In the consumer space, I think there's a lot of great activity happening. In terms of, the privies and the capsules, like making it super easy to sign in. I'm a big music person. Like I grew up singing and dancing my whole entire life. I DJ a bit. You can see the controller in the back there. I curate vibes. And I love what
SheFi Summit going to have the best soundtrack. Is that what I'm hearing?
My ideal dream, I've been talking to we have a lot of creators in SheFi, is to like create a playlist on a Web3 music platform of our female members, our women creative members. So that's like the goal. We need to hopefully get it actioned, but there's tons of great women in music in SheFi. And I love Catalog Works' new streaming and cosign. I've like spent, I've just been like, that's an amazing song. That's an amazing song. I love what Sona's doing with Toki Monsta and Laura, two amazing women founders as well. And I think that's what I love about that is just rethinking the relationship between artist and fan and monetization. But I think more than the monetization, it's like just that relationship between artist and fan. I would be remiss.
We call it direct to community, right? It's like this idea that that's what blockchain enables is eliminating that middleman as much as possible and connecting brands directly with their communities. So yeah, lots of thoughts there. Sorry, back to you.
I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what's going on with Farcaster. That's been a lot of fun to see the frames come out, and we're experimenting like how do we sell SheFi Summit tickets in frames, and Open Actions as well on Lens. They're both kind of like working on this. How do we make like a post interactive, which I think is going to be a lot of fun and move us beyond just like these vanity metrics of likes, where you can actually really engage with your community on these platforms. And I'm just excited to start seeing like the interoperability of these different chains, right? So one, the user might not really need to figure out their wallet stuff unless they want to be totally self-sovereign over their money, which I'd always advocate for one seed phrase wallet. And I think there's going to be like this era of like, we're not really going to know what you're transacting on either. And so far we've
amazing.
Yeah. And like kind of move away from these like wars to like just super seamless interoperability, which I guess we're seeing with like the super chain narrative. And I think a lot of other protocols.
And people are even people are connecting, was it like Celestia's using Ethereum for, I'm going to totally butcher this, but they're combining Solana and Ethereum, right?
Yes.
I forget
there's like the Eclipse team, I think is like bringing Solana to Ethereum. I think that's great. And I actually really admire the Solana ecosystem, like really getting stomped on and coming back. And I was like, okay, like I actually, I'm an Ethereum person being in the space since 2017, like a Bitcoin and Ethereum person. But I'm like, okay, Solana, like let's get you activated too. Let's get more women on your community. Like you definitely faced your teeth kicking in and like Anatoly's a great leader, right? So I really admire what they're up to. So those are kind of the things I'm excited about. Everything, I guess, that is basically.
There's so much fun stuff happening. It's hard to not be excited about it all. Quick thing on Sol. It's funny. My co-founder and I think for myself as well, very interested in ETH for a long time. That's how I got into the space in the first place. He was more of a Sol kind of guy, Solana guy. And literally my first crypto conference was Crypto Bahamas, hosted by FTX, which is a funny story.
Wow. You have so many stories.
That was an interesting conference. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. And then, but it's funny because I always kept a close eye on it. And then it feels like this year or last year, I think we went to Solana Breakpoint at Amsterdam. And I was like, now I'm fully sold. Like, so I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. Like you said, Anatoly. And there's the analogy I'm using nowadays is kind of like Apple versus Android, right? Like they can coexist, right? And I think Ethereum is much more generally, it's the market leader. I think it's going to be the market leader for a very long time, but there's very much a role that Sol has to play as like a much more, I guess, I'm not trying to use the word centralized, but more of a monolithic stack, I guess, for what they do, right?
That's the appropriate marketing term anyways, monolithic versus modular.
Exactly.
And there's 8 billion people on the planet, right? We're just talking about the masses. Like, don't lose the forest in the trees or whatever. Like, we can all, there's many people.
So many.
A lot of transaction volume that can happen if we can actually get to 8 billion people. So
exactly,
all chains should be very happy with getting a share of that.
We're all going to get there. We're all going to get there. I hear we're all going to make it or something like that. Is that still?
Like that. Something like
that. Beautiful. So I think we should do rapid fire questions. Pretty straightforward. Oh, actually, last thing. What's next on the horizon for SheFi? I just want to make sure you have time to talk about that. So most exciting developments for 2024, things coming up, and then we'll do rapid fire and we can round it out from there.
Amazing. Our 10th cohort is coming up, as you mentioned. It starts March 4th. So if you're a woman or non-binary or underrepresented gender in the space, definitely sign up for that. Like I said, there's infrastructure, DeFi, consumer. You'll get really broad exposure. If you also just want to join the community, you can do that as well. Just you'll mark that like, I just really want to be a part of this community. I don't need the cohort. And we have like a different flow for that. So definitely join, especially if you're looking to brush up on anything, or if you're like listening to this and you're like, oh, I've been crypto curious, but I haven't really dived in. We are the place for you to dive in with that community and, set yourself up to have a career in this space that is rapidly hiring. So definitely want to let people know about that. March 4th. Tell your moms, tell your sisters, tell your daughters, tell your cousins, tell your girlfriends, tell your friends that are girls, right? I want to do this funny Valentine's Day thing where it's like, it's not that your wife doesn't want to hear about crypto. She doesn't want to hear it from you or something like that. Or like roses are red, violets are blue. I want you to learn crypto because I love you. So like the men out there listening, the woman in your life wants to learn about crypto. She might just want to learn it from somebody that looks like her and be surrounded by people like her. So it's your job to bring if we're building for the masses, that starts with the women in your life too. So men, next time I ask you like, oh, is the woman in your life interested in crypto? Try not to roll your eyes at me and say she'd never be interested. Think about, oh, wait, Maggie's built this thing so that we can actually talk about it together. I think that's really important. So I'm shilling that very hard. We have our event in Denver on the 28th if you're going to be there. If you're not going to be in Denver, follow us on Twitter so you can see where we are in Brussels and Singapore and Kenya and Seoul and everywhere else we're going, bringing women together to learn and experiment on chain. Those are the two things. And, if you're a freelance recruiter and you're interested in helping women in our community get hired, feel free to reach out. Those are kind of the three main things: cohort, events, and career acceleration. So that's what we're looking for. And that's what really the whole year is focused on. So excited about that.
We like that. There's a lot there. There's a lot of exciting ways for people to get involved. In hindsight, I was trying to red pill my ex into crypto for quite a long time. So maybe I should just gift her a SheFi subscription or,
absolutely
class. And that's what it would have done it. It's good to know. It's good to know. All right. So let's go into rapid fire. Pretty straightforward. It's standard questions. So I'll ask, respond, and let's roll with it. So first one, would love for you to pick one project, Web3, AI, emerging tech as a whole, not including your own, that you're most bullish on.
Oh my gosh, making me pick favorites when they're all my sponsors. Yeah. That's really tough.
It could be none of them. I don't know.
I want to give a shout out to Sona again. Two female women founders, Toki Monsta and Laura. Check it out. Download it. You sign in with Privy. It's super easy. You can collect music or you can just listen to music. It's a great streaming experience. So I'm always here to say my favorite projects are the ones built by women. Yeah. Make sure they get lots of airtime.
We like that. How do you find that? What's the URL? Sona.
I don't remember the URL off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
it's Sona Music and Sona. If you like look up
Yeah.
Sona Toki Monster, she's the
Yeah.
DJ behind it. That'll definitely take you to the right spot.
Perfect. Yeah. And I'll be sure to put in the show notes and we'll take it from there. Next thing. This is one of my favorite ones. Biggest professional learning over the past 12 months.
Over the past 12 months, biggest professional learning. I think a big one is like I can't do it all alone. So SheFi has very much been a labor of Maggie Love with people coming in and out helping. And last year, like me and like one other woman really planned the events from like the food to the programming to the sponsors to the speakers. And it was a lot. And I'm not amazing at floor plans. I'm not amazing at food. I'm not amazing at negotiating contracts with vendors and figuring out the nuts and bolts. So this year is really all about, getting support. Support is a big word for me. Expansiveness is a big word for me. That, comes with certain sponsorships coming in. But like in Denver, we have a local event planner who knows the vendors, who knows the venues, who's going to make sure the day executes super well. And it's been the biggest weight off my chest. So that was definitely my biggest learning in the past 12 months. Like always a reminder. It was nice to try it because like now I know what needs to get done and I have certain expectations, but I don't need to do it again. Yeah. So that's a big learning.
The hardest thing to do is to ask for help, right? And then also to scale yourself as a leader, you have to empower others, which is not easy. I get it. Because especially if you're a perfectionist, you want to do good work. It's hard. You don't know.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. Next thing. Okay. So, and this might be a tough one for you. I don't know. But, and basically, if you had $1 million airdrop to, your main wallet tomorrow, what would you go build today? And it can't be SheFi. So what other project would you build outside of or within this space?
Wow, can't build SheFi.
And SheFi can continue to exist, but let's say for whatever fictitious reason, you're legally not able to actually work on it. You can go build anything else. Yeah.
I think I would love to continue looking at this hardware infrastructure space. I know that sounds super nerdy, but we spend so much time in the software world when it all runs somewhere. And I just like learned a lot about that in my last company and role. I think there's lots of cool stuff happening in the AI chip space. And like, I would love to, build infrastructure that supports all these systems continuing to exist. I think that'd be really like a really hard challenge and really fun. Like hardware is a totally different game. So I would probably do something like that.
You're a glutton for punishment.
I am a glutton for punishment, honestly.
It's all right. All the best entrepreneurs are. You got to love it. We, as my co-founder, Simon and I, we always just like, we wake up and we chew glass. That's what we got to do.
I was just thinking of that line. Yeah. Yeah. You really have to love the challenges. And I honestly do. So I love figuring out how to break through the thing I couldn't yesterday. And I put those scary goals out there, like how much money I want to fundraise so it can make SheFi sustainable. It's a big number. So I write it every morning. So I'm like, okay, get to that number.
Go make it happen.
It's like write the goal down and how you're going to get there and then go send those, do it. It's funny. I actually came across this flow chart that was like, are you scared? It was something about doing it scared, but it's like, I'm going to do it. And it's like, not scared. Yes. Scared. Do it scared. We have like a channel now on the SheFi Discord for Do It Scared. I started a Warpcaster channel for Do It Scared. But that's basically being a founder, right? Wake up and do it scared every day.
We just got to face our fears. Yeah. It's what we do. But we love it. And that's why we can't do anything else, I guess is the point, right? Yeah.
Yes. I know. So you're asking me to do something else. I was like, I don't know if I'm capable of doing anything else right now, of even thinking about what that would be.
Well, you got to love it. Okay. And then the last one here, this one's just kind of for fun, but basically craziest predictions for 2024 in, I guess in this case, Web3, crypto, blockchain, AI, just in general, emerging tech as a space.
Oh my gosh, there's so much happening right now. I mean, like from wearables to Apple Vision Pros. I'm actually finding myself becoming a bit of a Luddite.
Interesting.
This isn't anything the question you asked, but we're super lonely. 1 in 10 adults have reported like experiencing loneliness once a week. And I think I'm super nervous about the world where we're continuing to put devices on us that keep us in our own world and connected into virtual beings and friends across the planet, but like not getting together as communities. So I'm very like hesitant about all this Apple Vision Pro and my friends wearing pins that are recording our conversation. Like we already see on TikTok people getting recorded without their consent all the time. And I'm just kind of like, this world is crazy. So anyways, I think like in general, all that's going to take off, right? We're going to have a totally different way of interacting with humans that is kind of like mediated through this technological interface. That's not the one we're mediating through right now, which is Zoom and the desktop screen. So I think that will be like a very crazy thing. And I think that, you know, I think I said this earlier, but I think this AI use case could really bring in a lot of, I think we need to be ready again for like huge interest and influx. Like I think we've been used to like, there was no vibes in the space last year, like zero, because there wasn't that kind of super friendly use case like the NFTs were. But I think we'll see something like that again happen. And we'll be back on the, Stevie Aoki's DJing every party and like the silliness. I think that'll happen like towards the end of the year. I hope it's not. I hope we've all learned to be a bit more humble, but you know, there's a lot of people in this space and there's a lot of different ways.
And there's gonna be new people. It's like a never ending TV show, right? Every season there's new cast members, recurring characters, guest appearances. It's gonna be fascinating. I can't even. Yeah.
And I totally think brands are definitely going to come in and use all this stuff. It's all going to be interconnected, I guess. Like the wearables communicating to the blockchain, the way we're doing transactions with our eyeballs from our Apple Vision Pros, brands thinking about that a lot too, and how to engage their communities through all these technologies, like some of the stuff Nike's been doing. So I think it's that's like another thing. Like it's all just going to feel like one interconnected, I guess, consumer experience. So I guess I'm bullish.
It's all connected. Yeah, I love it. And we should be, because I feel like the past year and a half, all I've ever heard from anyone is like, yeah, I'm interested in the infrastructure and the picks and shovels. I'm like, picks and shovels for who? Somebody's got to use it.
I know. Someone has to build the thing that makes people use it. So we got to really shout out to the consumer founders and consumer funds who were like, it was hard last year. So you know,
more of that. We're all working on it. Let's make it happen. Beautiful. So I think that's it. I mean, this is a really fun conversation. Really appreciate you coming on, Maggie. I think, you know, you're doing really important work and you've been grinding. So much respect for that. And really excited to, you know, hang out in person at ETH Denver and SheFi Summit and beyond. And God bless you. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you so much. For coming on. It's been a fun conversation. I really admire what y'all are doing at Myosin and excited to hang out IRL. God bless you as well.
All right. Beautiful. And with that, I will say thank you so much. And I'll see you online in IRL. All right.
Sounds good. Bye.
All right. Ciao, ciao. We hope you enjoyed this episode in etc. And if you're a fan of the show, please show your support by subscribing and leaving a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And subscribe to our newsletter at www.netcetera.media to get started.